also see your slides now, so it's fine. You can start.
Thank you. Did you know that over 2 billion people worldwide do not have access to safe drinking water? Yes, I am here on behalf of Tomb Seed Center and Makerere University to present to you a crowdfunding campaign called Let Life Flow, Water for Kyampisi. Before I go any further, have you ever heard of Tomb Seed Center? Yes, I think some of you have. And for those who do not know Tomb Seed Center is an educational research-based institution that offers education with an intersection of sustainable energies and entrepreneurship. And to most scholars know it as a scholarship providing body that can actually allow you to further your research in sustainable energies and entrepreneurship. Tomb Seed Center has established several sustainable living labs in the Globe South. One of them is in Ghana, another is in Ethiopia. Also, Tomb Seed Center is establishing one in Uganda, where this current crowdfunding campaign should support. In Uganda, over 50% of the population do not have access to safe drinking water. And this is about 20 million people. You can imagine 20 million people do not have access to safe drinking water. And that kind of statistic is quite peculiar. Of course, not common in German or in Western countries, but this is a big problem that actually the Global South countries suffer. So Tomb Seed Center identified these kind of places or countries or populations that really have big issues with water, and that's where Tomb Seed Center comes in. And the other part, the 2 billion people, is not only for countries like, you can see the map of Africa. There are other countries in the Global South, like Asia, where Tomb Seed Center is also operating. In Uganda, we identified a village called Kyampisi. And Kyampisi is located in the central area of Uganda, which is about 75 kilometers away from the capital, Kampala. On the right, you can see a picture of Kyampisi village. This is an aerial view, and it gives you like an understanding of what we are talking about. Such a place is remote and is isolated, one from the national grid that provides the electricity, but there are not also other like mini grids that can provide. So such a community is like cut off. Some people may call it in the middle of the bush. So people in Kyampisi, this slide is not moving. Yeah. So what is the problem with Kyampisi? So people in Kyampisi do not have safe drinking water, and they share the existing water sources with animals. You can imagine a person drawing water when next to you is an animal. Most of you have ever heard of diseases that are zoonotic in nature that can affect people, at the same time they can affect animals. On the other side, people move long distances to move and to access this water. And this has actually been a big problem, especially for women and children who spend most of their time fetching water. During daytime and on a weekday, you expect children to be at school, which is actually not a common practice in some of these remote areas that lack better schools, but also they cannot do reading in the night because there is no electricity. But the biggest point is they fetch water from a far distance, whereby they have to spend most of their time fetching water instead of being at school. You can also, women on the right-hand side, women, instead of doing some other domestic chores, maybe cooking and so on, they spend most of their time fetching water. This dirty water has actually a lot of effects. And one of them, these water sources, which are dirty, are sources to waterborne diseases like diarrhea and cholera. I know Germany is not one of the places where cholera could be, but this, when you take this dirty water, you really get complications. And it happens that this water has feces, like you've seen animals are taking the same water, and animals do not control themselves when and where to remove or to ingest their dung. So they can do it in water. And even if when they do not do it in water, they can do it along the water channel, and when it rains, that dung ends up in this very source that people end up drawing. So it is a big problem that people face. The existing water sources, especially the boreholes, are very expensive. You can see a padlock on that picture. It means that someone cannot draw water because he or she has to pay. And always such costs are very expensive for a local person. And remember, the source of income is always seasonal. It comes after every 6 months. People plant cereals, banana, that does not grow in the month, and money is always required to draw water. And this is a big problem that even those that may need, actually, for example, for women who do most of the cooking, and men tend actually to ignore. They spend most of their time in what they call the money economy, looking for money, and they neglect these small costs for women. And women don't always have this money because they're always looking after children, and they're also doing some work in the garden. And the man that the husband is not living at home. So they end up going for alternative sources that are really very dirty. So she may not pay here, and she will go to a swamp or to the dam that I've just showed you where animals are drawn, and they share this water. So the costs are very high, and the diseases actually prevalent. These, second. We have testimonies from these villages, and one of them is Mr. Isaac Onyak. And for him, when people actually take this dirty water, he can spend over 2 to 3 months treating diarrhea alone. And remember, there are very many other diseases. So diarrhea alone taking over and making the other diseases less relevant may increase the mortality rate in these areas. So imagine someone has an accident and the entire maybe ICU is taken up by diarrhea patients who are really in very bad situation, who are losing water. It means that some other diseases are rendered not very serious. And just like most of you may, counselor thinks that in the current situation, no person should share drinking water or drinking water sources with animal, because these days we call ourselves the .com people. The generation say that things are better than before, and I would assume the previous people never shared water with animals, and now we are doing maybe what they didn't do. If they did it, they survived, and for us, we may not survive if we keep sharing this water with animals. So this is when Tomb Seed Center and Makerere University comes in to provide a solution. And the solution is to drill for groundwater, whereby you remember this area is in a semi-arid place. It means that there are no flowing water sources. You can only dig in underground for the aquifers where water has been stored over a long period of time. We also want to supply this water to close to the residents or to the residences around, so that people remember drawing water for which is a public use is always restricted. And we want to put it in a general point whereby people can easily access it close from their homes, other than walking long distances. Those places that I've told you, the villages or the places where people draw water, we want to install two 10,000 liter water tanks. These 10,000 liter water tanks will work as reservoirs in times of need, and also in times where there is maintenance of the system, but also when the demand is too high, these water reservoirs can supply water to the village. So we want to create continuity. So what is being done so far? Remember, we want to drill for groundwater. Remember, drilling in a place that does not have power or that is not connected to the general grid, and they do not have any mini grids around. What Tung Seed Center has done has provided some funding to create a system which is solar-based, and this will supply the power that is required to drill, and also to run the machines that will provide water to people. The installation has been made in the last 2 weeks. You can see the batteries. The batteries are very important in this sense that since it does not shine every day, we do not have control when it shines. Some days can be rainy, but the most important thing is this is a tropical place. So at least there is a small temperature variance or difference. So there is at least, but those days that it rains or probably in the night when it's not shining, the batteries can store this electricity and we can still pump water to the people. And the project coordinator from the Ugandan side, who is an engineer, thinks that drilling a well for the Kyampisi community is the best solution there can be, and it can change their lives tremendously. Professor Bells, who is the director of Tung Seed Center, thinks that if everyone, you and me, contributed to this cause financially or sharing to people who can actually also support, can change the lives of over 1,000 people lives in Kyampisi. And here is the team I have worked with to make sure this project comes online. But what do we need? We need your support today. And how can you do that? You need to support us in different ways, but there is a procedure you need to know which platform do we use to donate. We are using betterplace.org, which is a platform for collecting funds. And when you go to Better Place, look for the project called Let Life Flow, Water for Kyampisi. There could be different projects, but this is the one that we are presenting, Let Life Flow. And you can become a fan on the very platform. But the other important thing is to make a donation. After making your donation, you can recommend a friend, you can recommend to a family member, you can also tell your circles, and also those who are students, you can share in your classes. We believe that we can change this world together, and if we can contribute to this. Allow me share with you some video. It will take 1.5 minutes. Please listen in.
2 billion people around the world do not have access to safe drinking water. This is 1 out of 4 worldwide. And this also holds true to the rural community of Kyampisi in Uganda. So when people...
Sorry. This could be a chance that you may rewatch.
So when people go and fetch, they fetch that water, you find that people will get diarrhea. It's like a wave. You can spend like 2 months, or 2 months or 3 months treating diarrhea alone.
This community has been living without a source of clean water for a very, very long time. We believe that drilling a well for them with clean water will change their lives tremendously.
With this campaign, we want to raise funds to ensure access to clean water for the community. We want to drill for groundwater and buy a water pump for the community. Please contribute to the project to change the life of 1,000 people.
Bwe mutufunira amazzi amayonjo muba mukyusizza obulamu bwaffe.
So you can donate. You can also scan to donate. If you scan right now, it takes you to the platform where we donate. We request you to donate an equivalent of a bottle of beer or more for this cause. And if you want to reach out to us, you can. We on Twitter, no, we on Instagram, we on LinkedIn, Facebook, and you can also call us. You can also visit our website at www.seed.tum.g. Thank you so much for listening. I welcome questions. But before we go to the questions, there is something I did not mention. How much do we need? And I mentioned it last because it is the most important. We need 20,000 euros. And the progress is that we have so far managed to raise 20% with some of you who have already contributed. And today, I now welcome questions after reminding you of how much you may need to finish this project. I also have my team here. Some of them are here. They may be able to answer some questions. So if you do not see me answering, there is a voice that we have actually worked with. They could equally know the same as I do. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Joshua. It was really interesting. And nice to see like how a campaign can look like and what crowdfunding can do. As you mentioned, we now have planned a few minutes or more to answer open questions. So in case somebody of the listeners has something they want to know, or also maybe share experiences which might help Joshua and his team to reach out to more people, feel free to do so. Yeah. Are there any questions maybe? I don't see a hand. Sorry, Daniel, I didn't want to interrupt. Go ahead. There's one question by Sam in the chat. Joshua, is there a minimum amount for donating?
Is one of my team members ready to answer that?
Yeah, I can answer. No, there's not a minimum to donate, so you can donate as much as you want. You can donate from €1 maybe until as much as you prefer. So it's completely free.
Okay, yeah, that's good to know. I guess it always depends on the financial situation of everybody. But as Joshua mentioned, I mean, we often spend a few euros on coffee or beer, so maybe in the future it would be nice by maybe missing out on one beer in the afternoon and helping to support the campaign. Are there any other questions? I mean, Joshua also linked all of his channels, so in case some questions might pop up later, I guess you can always find a lot of information there as well. We'll reach out to them or also to us, and we will be happy to forward the questions. Adrian asked, is there a deadline for the crowdfunding campaign? So maybe you can answer that, Joshua.
Yes, there is a deadline, and that's why we come forth to people to support us. The deadline will be in the mid of June, and we expect by that time to have hit our target of 20,000 with your support.
Okay. Then there was another question by Bettina. She says, sorry if I missed it. How many in the village are going to benefit from the project? How many people, I guess she means?
So this village has over 350 homes, and 1,000 residents stay in this place. And we think that is a huge number. If you compare that to the German population here, that can be a big village. Just as it is in Uganda, it's quite a big village, and 1,000 people is a big score.
Okay, and then Daniel wrote his question down as well. He said, it seems my microphone is not working. My question, can you give me a little more info about the system design? For example, location of well versus tanks versus center of population.
Come again?
I can repeat. It's also in the chat if it helps you to read it out. But he asked if you have more information about the system design. You mentioned the different parts in your presentation, and Daniel would like to know more about the location of the wells, the tanks, and the center of population. So basically, is the system within the center or more outside of the village? And yeah, how is it looking in more detail?
Yes, I will start with the technical part. Since TUM Seed Center and is working with Makerere University, which is the leading university in Africa and where I started from, the technical side, the team you are seeing on site is entirely from Makerere University, and they are doing the technical bit. But to give you a little what they have shared, they are going to use a 10 kilowatt hour PV with 10 kV batteries to support the system. And this system is very close to the community. However, the water is over 2 kilometers away from the community. So the water source where people are going to fetch this water is over 2 kilometers away. And the borehole, which is safer or regarded as cleaner now, is over 3 kilometers away, where it is also expensive. So the technical team has done the water testing from the responsible authority and from the water labs from the ministry. And the water results show that they can continue because water can be good for people to drink because it is coming from an aquifer. Some of you would not know aquifers. Aquifers is that water that drains on a daily to the deeper layers of the underground or the crust. So it can be tapped by certain technology to drill. You tap it and you by suction pressure, you suck it and you bring it on the ground. So this will be very close to the community, and we are going to use pipes. Of course, the aquifers are not so close to the community, but we are going to use a piping system to get water from a distance close to the community. Yes.
Thank you. Daniel, is that the information you were looking for, or anything left open?
I have a question
Yes.
regarding, it relates a little bit to that, because I see the PV stations on the roof. Are you gonna need all the energy generated by the new solar plants for pumping and transporting the water, or is some of the energy also provided to the village to bring, for example, energy or electricity to households?
Yes, thank you. And that is a very important question. It actually takes us back on the core values of Tumseed Center, is to run a food, water, energy nexus system that can, one, allow people to run their small entrepreneurial businesses. So this solar is not only for the living lab, but it can also be taken to people's house for not only lighting. We would want to do something for productive use. Productive use means you use for one or more stuff, not only lighting. You can probably do a maize milling machine. You can see the place is agriculture. So if there is a season for maize, and this system you are seeing on the roof is extensible, you can extend it to, you can improve it to maybe to a 25 kilowatt system. You can actually put others on the ground and you can connect them. So it depends on the available money. And since right now, the pressing problem is water, Tumseed Center and the supporting partners have been able to provide the system that can run water, but can also test, especially women. Women are really a key factor as to why Tumseed Center is running this, because most women start home, and within the very community, they can sell smaller things to people that may require energy. The sewing machines, a woman can actually make some money through that. So, but unless they have electricity, and this kind of electricity that Tumseed Center is providing and Makerere University can be the trigger to that. But the 3 points of food, water, and energy nexus are intertwined together.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, are there any other open questions? Now's your chance to ask them to Joshua.
Maybe I will first ask my team members if they have any questions they want to ask to the team, because we are here as a team. If they don't, I will ask one question. Alicia?
Go ahead.
Yes, so my question is, do you think the 20,000 from what I've told you is enough to do all this? And if it is, can you support us to do this kind of project? It's more like a request, not a question. For my side, I see 20,000 is very little because the village has more needs. And the question is, can you support us to do this kind of projects? Because one, they are really impact oriented. I would be very happy if my brother, because this community actually translates to where I grew up from. And I would be very happy if my brother can have a study room in the night and he can do some reading. I would be very happy if my sister, who may be dropped out of school, can start a small business that runs on such electricity. I would be very happy if my grandmother doesn't have to walk a very long distance to get this water. And all these people are my relatives who stay in villages like this. Will you support us? This is a question you have the answer and you know what to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Joshua, for giving us that insight. I think it was very interesting to see. And yeah, as Joshua said, feel free to look at the different web pages and look at the information and maybe consider to donate your next coffee instead of drinking it and supporting the project on their betterplace.org web page. If there are no other open questions from your side today, I thank you all very much for joining and wish you a nice evening and see you at one of our next sessions. Thank you all for joining.
I just wanted to add before people leave, thank you all for joining. And it's not only about donating, but if you could please share in your Instagram or LinkedIn, Facebook, in the groups of your class or all the WhatsApp groups you have or whatever, so that people can know about this initiative, it would be amazing.
Yeah, it's a good point, Alicia. Because even if one personally doesn't have too much to step aside, but sharing is something everybody can do. So that's a very valid point.